Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I have a Get Well card for you, and I'm using the Timeless Tulips. It's the first time I've tackled that this year, and I have been a little concerned about the way I've seen the tulips stamped. The tulips that I have in my yard have vibrant color, and the tulips that I see stamped with this stamp are pretty light. And so I think I've come up with a way to get the kind of color I want to have on these cards. So let's just get started and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, here is my card. It's very simple, very graphic, and very dimensional. And in fact, I'm changing it up a little bit to make it even more dimensional when we put our card together. So I've got my big tulip, my bud, and my smaller tulip here with some graphic paper. This is from the paper with the bumblebees on it in Celebration, and I'm not remembering the name, so here it is. The Golden Honey Specialty Designer Series paper. And from that paper, I am using this bold black and white graphic design. And I've cut a little piece here. Let me just show you the pieces that you need to make this card. So I have a granny apple green card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Then I have 2 pieces of Whisper White that are 4 by 5 1/4, one for the front and one for the inside. Then I have this piece of the graphic line paper, and this piece is 2 1/4 inches by 4 inches. Then I have another small piece of this that is roughly not quite an inch, 7/8 of an inch by 1.5 inches for the inside. And then I have scrap to stamp and cut out my tulips, my leaves, my stems, and this is the inside of the card. So it says, "Get well soon, sending you healing vibes," and then it's got a tulip here, a leaf, and a little piece of this paper, and that's what we have for the inside. So let me tell you what I've done to do this. Now I'm using Timeless Tulips, and I'm using these 2 stamps. I'm using both stems. I'm using this leaf and one of these leaves, and I'm using the Get Well Soon from here, and then from Healing Vibes, I'm using You Sending You Healing Vibes. And I wanted something for the inside, and nothing quite fit from the Get Well Soon. So that's what I've done. What I've done to color these, let me just go to this piece of paper, which is my piece of cardstock that I'm going to do my stamping on. So I have my cards, my stamps all mounted here, my stems, my different tulips, and different leaves, and Sending You Healing Vibes, and the Get Well Soon. So I've got all of my stamps here, and the inks that I'm using for this, I'm using Memento for my sentiments. I'm using, on this one I used Old Olive, but I'm switching to Mossy Meadow because I think I liked that one a little bit better. It was darker. And I'm using Poppy Parade, and I am using a little bit of Old Olive, but mostly this Mossy Meadow. All right, and so what I'm going to do is show you some of the stamping here, and then what I've done to intensify the color of the stamps. All right, so here we have our large tulip, and let me see my punch. I think I need to do that one on this side. Oh, I don't have my pierce mat down underneath this. Hopefully I get away with it. And I did. All right, let me get my Pierce mat out so I don't run into that problem again. And then I'm going to show you by processing one of the leaves over on this other side. And I'm going to do that in the Mossy Meadow. And I'm just going to pick this one, and we're going to put this one here, and I'm going to show you how to stamp these or punch these out so that you don't have any waste. There you go. So there is our tulip, and you see the difference between the tulip that I have here and this tulip. Now, my tulips don't look like that. My tulips look more like this. So I have done, and I'll show you what I've done. Move that out of the way. These are the tulips and the leaves and stems that I have cut and prepared for us for the video. And you see the intense color. You see also how they have dimension, and they're curled around so that they will come off the page even more than this one did. This one has some dimension, but I'll show you this one, for instance. That one has lots and lots of dimension to it. And if I bring it up, you can see that I've cut all the way through that a couple of different places. And these leaves on this one do curl around the stems, and that is in fact the way tulip leaves work. They start by turning themselves around the stem, and then they come up and move away. And so this, and I'm not terribly happy with these, and I'm hoping we can improve that on this next one, but that's the way the leaves actually grow on a tulip. And tulips don't stand up very well, so I had one that kind of dipped over a little bit. And if you think about a bunch of tulips, often there's several upright and several that have fallen over a bit. And I'm going to use a smaller tulip on the inside here. Okay, so what do we do with this tulip to get it to look a little bit more vibrant? Well, I have put some re-inker in the tray here of my stamp. And I'm going to use my water brush, and I'm going to add some intensity of the color, and I'm going to move around the color that's already on here. So there we go. And you see the immediate difference that that makes. And I'm not losing any of the definition of the lines that make this look more like a tulip with the little lines. And I'll bring that up so you can see that. Hopefully you can see that there's still the same kind of dimension and life to that tulip. And I'm going to add even a little bit more intensity here at the bottom, and I'm going to do it in a little bit of a striped stroke here so that I do keep that sort of lines that are in there and blend them very dark at the bottom. And in fact, I have tulips this color in my yard, and like I said, they are absolutely bright, brilliantly bright. It's one of the fun things about spring and spring flowers is they come up and they're immediately quite bright. Now, I'm just going to clean off my water brush here on a piece of baby wipe just to get the pink off of this, or the red off of this. And I'm going to do the same thing to my leaves, because my leaves, like I say, and I like for flowers to look pretty much as realistic as we can. Oops, close that too far. I don't have a lot of ink in this lid here, but probably more than enough to darken this leaf and move the color around, because the color that's already here will start to move around. And again, I don't want to lose the veining in the leaves, but I do want to make it a little darker at the base. So I'm going to pick up just a little tiny bit from the stamp pad itself here, and move that color around a bit. Okay. Now I don't want to saturate that, and I don't want to get too much water on it, and I need these to dry a bit before we actually get them put on the card. So what I did was I used this. Now on the stamp, if you stamp along the bottom and to this side of whatever piece of paper you're cutting this from, you can cut this tulip out right on this side without any waste. And if you stamp your leaves along the edge of the paper on this side, now this isn't the right one because it's this one that you punch out. If you put this one along the edge here, let me just do it, and we'll put it up. We'll go the other way here, and we'll put this one right here, right along here. There we go. Now, I'll probably use this, so I'm going to go ahead and move that color around and darken this leaf just a little bit. In the end, I think these are more realistic looking than the just stamped ones. Okay, so now then, when I go to punch out my leaf with this, I can come right along this edge and do my stamping, do my punching. So if my next one was stamped right next to it here, I'm not hurting anything or losing anything by punching across this way towards the left. And when I'm doing my flowers, what I'm going to do is work towards the right. I hope that makes sense. And it'll allow you not to waste any paper as you do this. Well, I'm not going to let any of these leaves and pieces go to waste, but I am going to switch over to those that are already prepared for the video to save some time. So what I have here are a bunch of these, well, I'm going to do this one. And I went ahead and used the punch to kind of get it down to where I wanted it. And then I did fussy cut around the tulip because I didn't want any white border to show on this at all. And so, and believe me, once you get it cut down this far, this cutting is a piece of cake. So I'm going to continue cutting around here and getting this, and that way I can demonstrate for you what I did for the rest of this piece. All right, now I'm going to move some of these out of the way and get my Take a Pick tool, and I've changed the bottom of my Take a Pick tool to having this stylus on the bottom, and it's got one that is a little bit larger and one that's smaller, and I'm going to use the one that's a little bit larger. And all I did was distress the fibers in the paper and get it to get kind of a concave look to it here. Now, I also can tell you that if you have one of these old pokey tools, this also works to just use any kind of a pierce mat. This is the mat for my Stamparatus, and just bend the material so that we get this kind of a look on the other side. And you can do it also with a bone folder, and you can do it with all different kinds of things, but what you want to get is something that looks a little bit more lifelike. At least I did. Okay, so I have all of my stems and more leaves and flowers than I need, but if you've watched me, you know that's the way I do it. I'd rather have more things on hand than not enough, and make sure I can really complete my project. And if I end up with a different shape, an extra shape or two, that's fine. I can use it for another project. Okay, so on this, what we're ready to do is go ahead and put this piece on the front of our card base here. I'm going to do that, getting a good margin all the way around. And actually, for the inside, this decoration in the corner is pretty small. Oh, I didn't do my stamping. It's all right. I can do my stamping now. So I'm going to put my Get Well Soon down here on the bottom. On the bottom of my card, bring my Pierce mat back in here and get my Get Well Soon put right down here along the bottom edge of my card. Pardon my head if it gets in the way. See if I can get that on there straight. That's pretty good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do then is stamp what we need on the inside of the card, and that is the other sentiment that says sending you healing vibes. And for that, I placed that kind of up in this corner on the card. And there we've got our stamping done. Okay, so now on this, what we're going to do is lay our piece of black and white paper across the center here. And I'll put a little bit of snail on the back of it. And put that into place about midway on the card, and it should cover from side to side. There we go. All right, and there's something about that black and white and then a burst of color that is just graphically very, very attractive. At least to me it is. Okay, so I've got my couple of stems now, and I did this exactly the same thing. I stamped these, and then I used my water brush on them and moved the color around so that I got a deeper color. And on this one, I think I'm going to put this top one a little bit more upright on my card, and then having the one droop this way. So for this, I will just add with my dot runner here a little bit of glue along that stem and put that stem into place, maybe right down here. And what I have done is on this flower, I have taken one of these flowers and I cut along the petal on the one side, and then cut along that same petal or the opposite petal on the other side on this other side. So I ended up with 3 pieces like that. And then I made sure that we have plenty of dimension on those pieces and they're curled up nicely. And then I put some dimensionals down underneath here and then stuck them to the top of one of these other flowers. So a bit like this. In fact, let's just do it. So I've got some, see, on this one I think I can use a full dimensional. I've got some minis and some big ones. And on this one, I think if I just put one in the middle, that will do it. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay it not right on top, but offset just a little bit. And so there I've got even more dimension on that flower. This little tip needs to be rounded, I think. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with a couple of mini dimensionals on this one, putting them into place on the inside of this petal. And the end result is I'm going to get something that's very realistic looking. So I'm going to peel those. I'm going to kind of fluff my petal here and put that into place right in here. Again, not perfectly offset, but now can you see the extra dimension? Now I have this piece that I can add on the top, and I think on this one I wouldn't because I've got plenty of dimension there. And so it makes for a fuller flower to put down here. Isn't that pretty? So I've got that one done, and I've got this one done, and frankly this one has a little bit more fullness to it because it's retained its round shape a little bit better. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put 2 good sized dimensionals on the back side of this flower, and I'm going to put that into place right here on my stem. All right, now then I've got another stem that I'm going to move a little bit more this way. So I'm going to put some snail on the back of it. Don't you love a silicone mat where the glue just doesn't stick to the work surface? I love it. Okay, so now this one is going to cross this one. Oh, I'm going to make it cross right about here, right near the bottom of my graphic paper, and put into place right there. Then I have got one of these flowers that I've done that same thing with. I've increased the amount of dimension with the ball end of my take your pick tool, getting lots of curvature to that flower, and I'm going to put a dimensional right in the middle of that. And then I'm going to put that flower down right here. And it has a tendency to curve over the dimensional. So, and you could cut one of these as well if you wanted to add some extra dimension, but I don't want to get carried away with this either. So here is my stem that is kind of droopy. And so I'm going to put this one in place, and I'm just going to bend this back a little bit so that it will lay down. I want it to lay in such a way that it sort of hugs the surface of the card. So you can see it's got that kind of a bow to it. So I'm going to set this down right in here and have that one droop over this way. And on that one, I'm going to add a dimensional here. In fact, I think I'm going to use a big one on this right in here and put this down so that this one comes right down here. So that fills up the card a little bit better than this one did and leaves me a little bit more room for some leaves. Okay, now I did the same thing with these leaves where I've got them pretty well curled, and I think I'm going to use a mini dimensional on the inside of this. I'm going to use 2 of them on this leaf, I think. One towards the top and one towards the bottom. And then I'm going to have this leaf come into place here and curl up around the tulip. There we go. Then, let's see, I've got this one that's a little bit straighter so that we have some different leaves on here. And I will add my dimension to the back of this leaf and put it in place, maybe coming up and around this here. So again, maybe a little dimensional, 2 of them in place on the back of this. And put that in place, coming up this leaf or this flower here and going into place. And just because things are better in 3s, I'm going to add 1 more, and I think I'm going to tuck it under this one and put it right in there. I think that'll work just fine. So on this one, I might be able to get away with a big dimensional. Let's see if it'll fit in there. Nope. So I will put a couple of dimensionals. Again, I'm going to tuck this one right underneath here, coming up that stem and showing there. That's making these stems down here look a little bit long. So I'm going to trim those down just a little bit. I'm going to pick up those edges and I'm just going to trim those. I think that looks pretty good. Now, I did use a little of our twine, and what I did was I did a double strand. So I just made, let's see, what is this if I measure it for you? It's around 7 inches. Well, let's make it more like 8. And these little cricks in the ribbon or in the twine can just be taken out with your thumbnail. Just run them along there and they kind of go away. So I'm going to put 2 strands together. So I'm going to come down here and make it 2 strands, and I'm just going to tie a little double bow and put it on my little cluster of tulips. If I can grab all of my threads, I will. There we go. And have these threads trained down a little bit. Get my bow to the size I want it. And right down here, I think, is where I'm going to put that. I'm going to trim off these edges, and I'm going to use a glue dot. And what I'm going to do is take my glue dot and I'm going to roll it and roll it and roll it until I get almost a little sausage shape. And I'm going to take that and put that on the back of my bow and then lay that whole thing down where I want it on my cluster of flowers. And there I've got my bow. There I've got my get well, and I think that's just lovely. Now on the inside we have our sending you healing vibes, and I'm going to put down here my little piece of the graphic paper. Okay, here's my paper, and I'm just going to add a little bit of snail to the back of this paper and put that in place right down here at the bottom. And I'm going to this time use one of the smaller tulips. I thought the big one was just almost a little too big, and I'm going to put a dimensional on it, put it into place down here. I'm going to take this and maybe one of these leaves that also has a little bit of dimension and put that into place right down here as well. So I will add a few dimensionals to the back of this and put that in place. In fact, this one might need a little bit of a trim. The leaf is almost too big for the flower. So if I were to do that, I could trim this and give this leaf a little smaller profile, and then go ahead and put that in place. Okay, there we go. All right, now this is ready to go on the inside of my card. Here we have this piece ready to go on the inside of our card. And there you have it. That is our project for the day. Isn't that pretty? And so there's the one that I made previously, and here's the one I made today. And you can tell me which one you think is better, the one with way more dimension, or whether you like this one more skewed that way or more upright. Let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you and to understand what you like and what you don't like. So, oh, I got some smudges on this. I think I can get that off with my sand eraser. But that's the project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. There's absolutely fabulous join offers right now to join my team. Almost $185 worth of product for $99, and it goes on through the end of March. And I've talked to several people about it so far this time, and love to talk to you about it as well. Let me know what you're thinking, what kind of questions you have, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. My phone number is always listed just below the video. Give me a call anytime. Well, that's it for me. Now, my prize draw, it's still January, so my prize draw for the month of January is the bundle of your choice out of the mini catalog. All it takes to be in my drawing is to place an order on my website, lbedinger.stampinup.net, or you can get to it through my blog, www.inkandingenuity.com. I'll be back soon with more cards, more tips, and more projects. Bye!